Having seen the wonders the little girl could make and perform excited him. Doug was eager to see what else she could do. He anxiously prepared for bedtime so he could dream of what he would ask the little girl to do the next time they met. Doug looked forward to making all types of incredible things occur at his request. This was more thrilling than going to the local drugstore to choose between ice cream or taffy. It was even more fun than waiting for a birthday and basking in the moment of feeling 1 year older. This felt invigorating to him. Douglas knew he was different. He was at the beginning of a journey to find out exactly how special and unique he was. Gene noticed that Doug was giddy and had no idea why. He dismissed it though. Douglas had always been different. Little did Gene know that he was right. He had no idea exactly how different his brother was and would become. Boys, it's time for dinner. Who's hungry? Mrs. Hartford soon heard the footsteps of the boys in the distance. She knew the sound all too well of them round the corner. The boys were likely thumbing through their comics or finishing up some homework at the time she made the dinner announcement. They had already smelled the kitchen's aromas for better than an hour now and could hardly wait until they were summoned. Now that Mrs. Hartford was ready, they felt as hungry as tiny ravenous wolves. They were very typical growing boys. Wow, Mom, it smells so good. I'll have mine and Doug's. What are we having? What is it that I'm not sharing with little D? Mom! Don't worry, Douglas. Gene, I have more than enough for you. Daddy's not home, so I think he ate away from home tonight, perhaps with one of his clients. If you're really that hungry, I can give you some or all of his portion. Boys, wow, they eat everything. Mrs. Hartford laughed a bit. Gene excitedly shouted, "Yay!" At the conclusion of dinner, both Gene and Douglas told their mom that dinner was great. The boys did not even have a clue, but Mrs. Hartford stretched the meal. She heard Mr. Hartford loud and clear that they needed to spend less money, and she was going to do what she could to help good old Dad. Mrs. Hartford had miscalculated, however. She felt certain that Mr. Hartford had eaten away from home due to the late hour of his return. Mr. Hartford worked feverishly that day at the bank to secure 3 new accounts. There was one account in particular that he wanted, a middle-aged investor and recently arriving town member whom he had a lengthy meeting to discuss banking and a banking venture with. The meeting was tense. There were moments of levity and connection, and there were also harsh words. The meeting was draining. At the end of the meeting, Mr. Hartford was not altogether sure what the outcome would be. All he knew was that he was incredibly tired and hungry. He looked forward to a delicious meal prepared by his wife and some rest from the mentally exhausting day. How are the boys? They are just fine. All their chores are done. They arrived on time from school, and they loved tonight's dinner. Gene loved it so much he had seconds. Even though they are in bed, I'm sure they'd love to be tucked in and kissed on their forehead. Wow, sounds like everything went right, even perfectly. It was a nice day, except that I was so busy with the meeting that I temporarily lost my appetite. It found me on my way home. I spoke so highly of how great a cook my wife was to the investors. Before I assume, is there any food left for me? Mrs. Hartford had no idea what to say, and even less what she should do. She stood up and made her way to the kitchen. Mr. Hartford stood up too. She thought Mr. Hartford was following her, and she tensed up and continued to nervously move forward in the direction of the kitchen. Mrs. Hartford desperately wanted to know if he was behind her. She heard footsteps, so she assumed he must be. Mr. Hartford, in fact, turned in the direction of his 2 sons' rooms. The advice Mrs. Hartford gave him was perfect. He missed his boys so much. In their room, he tucked his boys in. Jean was too old to be tucked, but Mr. Hartford just couldn't resist it. The boys slept so soundly. As he looked on at his boys, Mr. Hartford wondered if he overtasked them with chores or with his extremely high academic standards for their future success. Having finished loving on Jean, tucking him in, and giving him a kiss on the forehead, Mr. Hartford was excited to kiss the forehead of his youngest son. Mr. Hartford did not know exactly why, but he loved Doug. As no parent would readily admit, having no inkling exactly what Douglas would become, he felt there was something extra special about him, something even more so than his son Jean. Mr. Hartford hesitated a little in the boys' room, reflected back on when he felt especially proud, loving, and excited to be in young Douglas's presence. Doug, in Mr. Hartford's estimation, had the ability to see things as they really were. He was very practical and insightful. He was very inquisitive and had a great memory. He seemed to believe in a greater or different power, yet those beliefs did not conflict with his faith. While still small and young, he had so much courage in spite of not exhibiting much physical strength. Mr. Hartford finished tucking young Douglas in and kissed him on the forehead, then whispered a few words over him. On his way out, he said a few things aloud. I hope one day you grow out being slightly awkward and become more athletic. I know you'll always have a job. I worry whether you'll be able to take care of yourself without Jean to protect you. Mr. Hartford walked toward the kitchen in the direction of a pleasant aroma emanating from it. His stomach led the way. The pangs were so strong and his senses so heightened that he closed his eyes and found his way. Mrs. Hartford had hurried up and put together something for Mr. Hartford. It was not much, yet it was lovingly, tastily, and fearfully made. I hope you like it. Mr. Hartford sat in front of a plate which had a hearty cut of cured pork, a biscuit, and gravy. He had a slice of apple pie for dessert. Just the day prior, Mrs. Hartford made her delicious dessert. She saved a single piece for herself. She knew that in order to complete the meager meal and have a hope of satisfying her husband's appetite, it all rested on him truly enjoying the taste because there was not much content there. Considering he had so little to eat today, all she could do was hope it met or exceeded his expectations. Mr. Hartford smiled after the pie. Thank you for dinner and for my two handsome boys. Mrs. Hartford felt like she held her breath the entire time Mr. Hartford was eating. She breathed a sigh of relief when he completed his meal. Thank you for this beautiful home and for loving us and our boys. They both smiled and retired to their bedroom to rest. They prepared for and were soon ready for bed. Mr. Hartford rolled over to kiss his wife goodnight. His hands found Mrs. Hartford's wrist and he pulled her gently toward himself. He kissed her neck. Mrs. Hartford breathed gently and deeply, then slowly turned her face toward Mr. Hartford. As if it was a rehearsed, synchronized move, he also turned further in Mrs. Hartford's direction. Just as he turned, closed his eyes, and prepared to give her a gentle kiss goodnight, he saw a familiar box. An uncomfortable warmth moved over his body. He grabbed his wife's wrist just a little tighter into him. Mrs. Hartford's heartbeat began to speed up. Passion and anger can sometimes feel very similar. She knew this all too well. The difference, albeit very subtle, was most noticeable for her when the small hairs at the back and at the base of her neck tingled instead of tickled. The second sign for her was when her blood coursed through her veins like a heavy beating drum rather than the natural meandering flow of a river. The drum beat so hard that it hurt rather than providing that amazing euphoric feeling that normally accompanied the tickle on her neck, the visible goosebumps on her lower back and on her earlobe. This was definitely frustration and anger, and she knew it was not safe for her. This was definitely not love's embrace. It changed so rapidly. Mrs. Hartford wondered what went wrong. What had she done wrong? I love you, honey. Sleep well. Why are you shaking, my love? I felt a sudden chill. Your body and the sheets will warm me. I'm not sure that's the reason. I also don't think you'll get much warmth from me tonight or in this moment. Now, honey, we're both tired. You have had a long day. Just rest. Please, just rest. In a soft and angry tone, Mr. Hartford spoke to Mrs. Hartford. He was positioned eye to eye with her. Why is that box here? Today, I worked tirelessly to make a deal with a potential investor. I'm so close, but yet so far from closing the deal. A solid rapport and mutual trust and respect with the client means nothing without something in writing in the exchange of funds. We are on the cusp of financial ruin. It is my job to provide for this family. It is only my job to provide for the boys and for you. I feel less of a man to even have to explain it to you once, but to have to say it twice in 2 days makes me think you want to hurt and humiliate me for not taking care of you in a manner consistent with your father. Every part of Mrs. Hartford's being told her to gently and quickly remove herself from the room. In that moment, no matter what she said, it would not appease Mr. Hartford. She also knew that she was never very careful when it came to choosing words. What she often said came out blunt and fact-filled. She grew up in a family of men who were direct and without emotion. She never spoke with the intent of being hurtful, condescending, or malicious. Typically, her natural calming voice and physical beauty was enough to take the sting out of anything she would say. You do love me, and you do love the boys. I tried to return the watch. The owner was willing to take it back, but then his wife saw me, and I felt pressure to keep it. Carrie, a well-to-do friend who was shopping in the store, saw the watch in my hand, and she and the owner's wife both thought it was such a beautiful watch. The owner knew my situation. We had just discussed returning it. He was in agreement and said he would return the money and hold the watch for me until things changed. My pride didn't allow me to return it. In the end, I walked out of the store with the admiration of the store owner's wife and Carrie, and the pity of the store owner. I felt horrible on the way home for allowing my pride to guide my decision process and for not honoring my dear husband's wishes and very specific guidance. I also felt angry because my husband's equally great pride guided his autonomous decisions on the family financial management. Your pride is stacked so high that you can't see over the wall's lips to see that a temporary loan from my father is not a handout. Because of your self-imposed inability to seek help, neither your doting boys nor I celebrate you in a way that the three of us feel you deserve. I won't take it back. You deserve it, and we love you. For a few moments, the miniature daggers Mrs. Hartford felt coursing through her veins waned. Mr. Hartford pulled her close as he initially started. He placed his hands gently on the sides of her face. Only his fingertips were all she could feel caressing her face. He gently kissed her lips. His hands slowly moved down her face. With his hands gently pressed against her neck, he looked Mrs. Hartford into the eyes and softly whispered to her, I could squeeze the life out of you with my hands, just as you have squeezed the life out of me with your pride. Tell me how it feels to slowly realize you are losing grasp on life. This is how I feel. My manhood is slipping away. I feel that. At first, as if mesmerized, Mrs. Hartford gave into Mr. Hartford's passionate kisses and the tightening grasp by his hands. She was a snake charmed by the mesmerizing notes of a flute-like instrument. As her body realized it was losing oxygen, however, the charming diminished, and she automatically began to flail around. Mr. Hartford used his other hand to slap at her hands that were trying to pry her neck free. He held her feet and legs with his by using the heavy blanket that was atop her. Mrs. Hartford managed to squirm one leg free and thrust it forward toward Mr. Hartford's shin and eventually his stomach. With one powerful, accurate kick to the stomach, Mr. Hartford too experienced a moment without oxygen. Operating solely on adrenaline, Mrs. Hartford rolled out of bed onto the floor with a thud while grasping her neck and trying to swallow. Doug woke up. He sensed that something was wrong. He listened intently but could not make out any audible noise. However, his senses were never wrong. Gene, wake up, something is wrong. Any other older brother would smack his younger brother and return to sleep or tease him for being afraid to sleep in the dark. Not Gene. He learned to trust Doug's every instinct. What is it? Is something on fire? Someone is in danger. Mom and Dad are in danger. Is there an intruder? What can you do? What can we do? There is someone evil here. We can't just sit here and do nothing. It's coming from Mom and Dad's room. They will protect us. It seemed an eternity, but Mrs. Hartford could finally freely breathe. She wearily stood and rushed toward the door. Tonight she felt there was no stopping Mr. Hartford. Tonight she would die and never see her boys again. Just as she grabbed the door's handle, A hand grabbed her wrist and she screamed. The only way to silence her and not risk the boys waking was to cover her mouth. Mr. Hartford slung her onto the bed. Mrs. Hartford sailed briefly in the air and landed where she was being strangled earlier. Before she could fully process what just happened, Mr. Hartford was on top of her with the pillow. Mr. Hartford immediately stared into his wife's eyes and quietly screamed at her, "Hush, you'll wake the boy. You are always thinking about yourself. Quiet." Mrs. Hartford flailed around. This time she had little leverage. The full body weight of Mr. Hartford was on top of her. She focused her strength on trying to remove the pillow. It was so dark. It was so hard to breathe. His seated weight on her stomach took even more air flowing energy away. Mrs. Hartford made peace with her fate and gradually struggled less. Suddenly Douglas's voice pierced the silence, followed by Jean's. "Dad, Mom, are you okay? We're opening the door. We heard noises." Jean had not actually heard anything. Mr. Hartford was very careful in that regard. Jean did as Doug instructed and said that he heard voices. Suddenly Mr. Hartford realized what he was doing, but not before the lads opened the door. Upon seeing what was transpiring, Douglas yelled out, "Dad!" Jean instinctively called out, "Mom!" Douglas spoke authoritatively. "Dad, move or you will know great pain." A chill went through everyone in the room. Mr. Hartford removed the pillow and stood up. Mrs. Hartford gasped for air over and over again, then began to cough and cry aloud. She was thankful to breathe without obstruction. Jean looked at Doug with respect and fear. Jean then looked at his dad with disgust and anger. Mr. Hartford grabbed his shirt, his pants, and shoes and pushed past the two boys who were standing in the doorway. As he passed Douglas, Doug gently and briefly grabbed his wrist. Mr. Hartford had a vision and gasped. He put on his clothes and headed toward his office to think and sleep. Doug and Jean walked over to Mrs. Hartford and held her. She had never felt so much comfort or needed so much comfort as she did in that moment.